me some ice. Skin me a peach and save the fuzz for my pillow. Poach me a prawns, talk to me nice, you got to whine me. Anytime I'm getting hungry, peel me a grape.
I'm Laura Bonicelli, and we are cooking with Italian style. It's not always fast, it's not always easy, and it's not always Italian. We use the freshest and finest ingredients that we can find and afford, and we not only savor the meals we make, we savor making them. That's cooking with Italian style. This week, we're making shredded beef enchiladas with fall-off-the-bone short ribs and all kinds of wonderful spices. This one takes a while, so let's get cooking. I'm finishing chopping my ramps, and if you haven't seen a ramp, this is what they look like. They look a lot like a green onion, and the taste is a lot like a cross between garlic and leek. They grow wild here in Minnesota in the spring. Some people call them wild leeks, but they have just a wonderful flavor. Now for this recipe, if I weren't using the ramps that I found at the farmer's market, I would use a leek, and I'd use just the white and green part of that and clean it very thoroughly. Okay, we're all set. So to tell you what else I have going here, I have a large yellow onion that I've peeled and sliced, and my ramps, of course, a red bell pepper that I just chopped roughly after I seeded it, 4 cloves of rough chopped garlic. You can slice it if you want to. This is 1 jalapeno seeded and diced, and a bay leaf. Now we're going to start with all of this after we brown our short ribs, and to that we're going to add 5 Roma tomatoes that I've quartered, and these are some green chilies and chipotles in adobo sauce. They come canned. This is some tomato sauce, tomato concentrate, so basically tomato paste, cumin, and a little tequila. So I am going to sprinkle, this is about 3 pounds of beef short ribs, sprinkle them with salt and pepper. And then I'm going to heat 1/3 cup of olive oil in a pan and brown these really well. That is the beginning of the braising process. This is over high heat, and I'm hoping I can get all of these into this pan. If not, I'll do them in batches. And I put salt and pepper on one side, and then as soon as I get these in here, I'll do the other side. That way I don't have to spend a lot of time handling raw meat. I'm going to give these a flip. Look how beautifully brown those are. Oops. To get it in the middle. There we go. Turning them right over. So I just kept flipping these around until they're nice and brown on all sides. And now what I'm going to do is turn the heat down and get these out of the pan. I'm going to use the same pan to saute my vegetables. I'm adding in my onion and my ramps, pepper, garlic, jalapeno, and my bay leaf. I'm going to saute these until they are nice and soft. Should take about maybe 5 minutes. Now I'm adding 1 adobo chili and 1.5 tablespoons of the green chilies, my 5 quartered Roma tomatoes, teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 cup of tomato sauce. I'm going to guess on this, but I love these squeezed concentrates. About 2 tablespoons of double concentrated tomato paste. Now, I'm going to stir this around, and I'm going to let it cook until these tomatoes get nice and soft and a lot of the liquid is cooked off. So you can see how a great deal of the liquid has cooked off and how soft the tomatoes have become. This took about 15 minutes to get to this point. And what I'm going to do now is add a little salt and pepper. Remember, this is all about building flavors, so that's why we have the chipotles for smokiness, and we have our green chilies, which add a little sweetness along with the red bell pepper. Cumin is a nice spice. Okay, that's a little salt and pepper, and now to get really, really fancy, we're putting in roughly a cup of tequila. And I'm keeping this over fairly high heat, and I'm just going to cook this off. It'll take about 2 minutes. I have cut the heat on my pot, although it's still bubbling. I'm adding back in my short ribs, and I preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and I'm just going to toss these around just to get them into the liquid a little bit. I've got all of these nicely into the sauce now so they won't dry out, and the last thing I'm going to do is add in 3 cups of homemade chicken stock. Okay, cover on, into the oven for 4 hours. I got everything cooled off, and I separated the beef from the sauce, and what I did was shredded the beef, removed all of the fat and connective tissue. Now I've got my sauce in a food mill, and I strained off as much fat as I possibly could because it does get some from the beef. And what I love about using a food mill for this is just about the last of it, is it just takes care of all the skins, and anything that you don't want in your sauce stays in the strainer, which works out just great. Very simple to use. And I like it better for this than a blender or a food processor. Okay, I think we're set. Now, for my beef, to finish the filling, this is some queso blanco cheese. I'm just going to add that to it. It's probably about 3/4 of a cup. You kind of can use what you want. And this is a nice bunch of green onions that I've chopped up. That's going to be what's inside of our tortillas. So mix that up really well. All of these right now, this makes actually a serving for 6 to 8, but for our purposes, I'm just going to put together a few. So in my pan, I'm going to put some sauce to line the bottom, just enough to cover it. And then I decided to toss these tortillas into the oven, or excuse me, the microwave, for about 20 seconds. It makes them much easier to handle. Okay, I'm wrapping this guy up. Sauce. And this is important because if you don't get them covered with sauce, then they get really hard when they're baking, and they actually get crunchy, which is not what you're looking for. You want them to be very flavorful and very soft, so you've got to get them completely covered. And the sauce is great anyway, so no problem there. All right, great. Now, last but not least, a little cheddar jack cheese. Put that over the top. Goes really well with our queso blanco. And I've heated an oven to 400 degrees. And we're just going to pop these in there until they get nice and melty, probably about 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes was absolutely perfect for this, and to garnish it, I made a little salsa with some very sweet grape tomatoes that I quartered, mixed it with some frozen corn that I cooked, about a cup of that, about a cup of each actually, and then mix that with some green chilies for a little more heat. So I'm just going to spoon that right on top of my enchiladas. Smell all that spicy goodness that we've been cooking for hours. I cannot wait to taste that shredded beef with that queso blanco cheese. So this is going to add some just nice and necessary color to our presentation. And because I love that queso blanco so much, I'll put a little more on the top. Can't get enough of it. Just a little more. Beautiful. If you want this recipe and more, go to solobybonicelli.com and click on the recipe section. I really hope you enjoy making my shredded beef enchiladas and cooking with Italian style. Buon appetito!